project started actually from something called the Geovation Challenge. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but the project was sponsored by Ordnance Survey and the UK's mapping agency. And every year they hold something called the Geovation Challenge, which is a crowdsourced challenge where you get charities, third sector, local authorities, putting up ideas around the theme challenge. And 2 years ago, it was to do with neighbourhoods and how they could be improved. And Age UK in Newcastle actually I'm one of the judges, and they were shortlisted, but unfortunately they weren't a winner for various reasons. But after the challenge, I was talking to the people who were the organisers at OS, and we said that actually if there was one project that really touched us, it was the Age UK project from Newcastle. I won't go into the details why, but I hope it will show through in some of the conversations we've been having with the biker community in Newcastle. One of the problems that Age UK identified, I mean, as any big charity, they're very good, they are very successful actually in fundraising, but they are also quite corporate. So as we're all aware in terms of, for example, the pressures that we're all under each day in terms of delivering our jobs, and Age UK have the same problem with its volunteers, and often they're missing out on what is happening on the ground. And one of the things they came to us over was we actually aren't always familiar with services being delivered to the elderly community that are non-Age UK based, and also actually we need to be building more partnerships, especially with carts, in which actually elderly people have a bigger choice about, let's say, where they can go and have lunch. The project response that we took a design anthropological approach, and I'm stressing that because it was really understanding place. And I know, for example, you've spoken a lot in the past as a tool about customer journey maps, and actually one of the things we didn't use was journey maps, because actually we used place maps. The idea of I'm trying to really understand how people dwelled in Biker, how they felt as part of a community. And a brief conversation I had with Rob was that a lot of people within Biker, which is historically a very working class area of Newcastle, move away, but they always come back. They're very drawn to going back when they're reaching retirement, or when they've their families, for example, have moved on, or their partners, they've lost a partner. They move back to Biker and they go back into the community, as Rob was saying, at the same level that they left it. And there's a very strong feeling of social cohesion amongst the they're very proud, and they're also, they have their own little groups within the community. So the students, there were 2 MDes students, Service Design Innovation students, working on the project, and they actually joined as volunteers within the lunch clubs. There were 2 lunch clubs, one run by Age UK and a non-Age UK lunch club. They used cultural probes and also photography. They gave cameras to the participants, and actually they built a really rich picture about how people use Biker, the Shields Road in particular. They also went and hung out in the Shields Road, and what they found out was that there was a huge amount of activity that wasn't necessarily targeted explicitly at elderly people, but in fact was offering a really, really rich service. One in particular, which was Pam's, which was a local business that had been opened for more than 30 years. Every day they had 38 to 40 elderly ladies who came in. There was no appointment scheme, but what actually was a real critical point was that, well, they could all wait in the hairdressers. They were being given cups of tea, and in that space there was incredible social engagement. They were sharing stories. The laughter that was coming on within the space that spilled onto the street was really very special. Equally, Blossoms across the road, which was a cafe, offered pensioner lunches for £2. And actually, when we started building actually this picture of all these different services, we found actually that the Age UK, who are doing a marvellous job and actually really don't have the capacity to deal with the requests for their lunch clubs, could actually support these pockets of activity that are going on actually in a much more recognisable way. So we got people to tell their stories about Biker. we got them to also take pictures of their highs and lows. They loved these activities, and one of the things that the students were able to do was to not do customer journey maps, but actually to do persona and place maps. And it was the idea of dwelling, mapping stories and places, and how people moved around the space during their week, the activities they shared, what was important to them. And often on the maps you would have, for example, we've got quite a few spots there, but you might find that people were they were returning to the same place, and in fact they would like to go to somewhere else, but they didn't have the confidence or they didn't necessarily know about it. I should say that the digital in this was not for actually the lunch club members. In fact, they all expressed the horror at the internet. They felt that the digital was moving too fast. There were also issues which connect with many of the discussions we're having about energy consumption and bills, is that they didn't understand the pricing structures that were offered over things like broadband use. It's invisible. They were afraid of being billed beyond their financial means. So in fact, they were very reluctant to go onto the idea of having internet access at home. However, for Age UK, we were able to produce these maps, and they are looking to go for some funding with the idea that their volunteers could actually start collecting these local points and actually having a better understanding on what's on offer, and which can often sometimes be lost or hidden in terms of their daily delivery of their scheme. For the students, actually one of the key things I think that for them is some of the ethical issues, that how do you extract yourself? They've made amazing connections within this community. They are now trying to extract themselves from that. They've presented their work back, but these are questions that we need to probably consider.
Hello, Paul Kelly from Camden. Really interested in the maps that you put together. That's one thing that we're really struggling with, is how do we communicate the wealth of activity that we do have in Camden to people in a way that they can relate to. Were these maps produced on paper? How did you get them out there?
Very good question. I've actually just come back on Monday from doing an ordnance survey open data masterclass, and you can actually get the open data. OS is really keen, and then actually it's more technical than it is promoted to be actually, but actually you can crack it. The idea is that OS, through their Geovation Challenge and their masterclasses, will support people to use the open data as a way for service innovation. I don't know, does that answer the question? I can give you more information.
I think that's useful, but I'm just wondering how you got the completed maps with all the points of interest out to people.
Well, that was actually the students doing basically field work, but one of the things that we would like to do is actually for Age UK, through its volunteers and mentors, is to capture that data and then to be able to map it themselves, and also for other businesses to actually say, we offer a tea club, we offer a tea dance, and actually it's at this time in this location, and actually on the Age UK website they can upload that information, so it's a two-way channel.